Imagine you are walking down a crowded street on a cold winter morning. Hundreds of faces blur past you, some expressionless, some distracted, some lit by the glow of their phones. In that moment, it hits you with brutal clarity. None of them care about you, not in any deep, personal way. If you vanished from this pavement, the river of bodies would continue to flow without so much as a ripple. At first, the thought feels like an existential punch in the chest. A quiet panic stirs inside you. It's the kind of realization people avoid by burying themselves in the noise of conversation, work, and endless scrolling. Anything to escape the abyssal truth that we are, in the grand scheme, entirely dispensable. But here's the paradox. The very moment you truly accept this, your life changes in ways you could never have predicted. When you strip away the illusion that you are perpetually under the gaze, judgment, or protection of others, something unexpected happens. You become free. This is not a comfortable freedom. It is not the warm blanket of reassurance people crave. It is a sharp, cold wind of liberation that cuts through the layers of social pretense. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist who stared into the marrow of human freedom, once wrote, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." If no one cares, if the universe offers no witness to your triumphs or failures, then the responsibility for meaning falls entirely upon you. Most people recoil from that weight. They build their lives on the silent hope that others are paying attention, that their existence will be validated by applause, recognition, or even sympathy. But this is a dangerous dependency, because it places the core of your being in the hands of people who are too consumed with their own battles to guard yours. Think about it. How often do you dwell on the problems of a stranger you passed on the subway? How often do you carry someone else's grief after a casual conversation? You don't, not for long. Life pulls you back into the vortex of your own concerns. And the same is true for everyone else. Your pain, your dreams, your victories, they are footnotes in the sprawling novel of other people's lives. To confront this truth is to stare at the raw mechanics of human existence. Society thrives on mutual illusions, that our worth is inherently recognized, that others will be there in our hour of need simply because we would do the same. In reality, people often care in moments, but moments are brief and unreliable. The rest of the time, the world is busy surviving itself. This may sound cold, even cruel, but the cruelty is only in the shock of its unveiling. Once absorbed, the knowledge becomes strangely empowering. If no one is truly watching, then you are free to shape your life without the invisible chains of imagined judgment. You stop performing for a phantom audience. Carl Jung understood the psychological cost of living for others' perceptions. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot do that if you believe the world is keeping a meticulous ledger of your worth. The danger of clinging to the belief that others care deeply about you is that it breeds hesitation. You delay your decisions, fearing the disapproval of people whose attention span for your life is measured in seconds. You live in the prison of anticipated judgment. The day you accept that no one is holding the keys to that prison, not really, is the day the door swings open. From here, a strange, defiant clarity begins to grow. If they do not care, then their permission is meaningless. If they are not invested in your downfall, their disapproval is harmless. And if they are not committed to your success, their praise is hollow. In the next step of this journey, we will explore the dangerous seduction of needing others to care, the deep evolutionary wiring that made us dependent on external validation, and why severing this dependence is the most radical act of self-possession you can undertake. If understanding that no one truly cares about you brings freedom, then why do so many resist it with every fiber of their being? Why do we cling so desperately to the belief that we matter deeply to strangers, acquaintances, even casual colleagues? The answer lies in a far older part of us, one that predates philosophy, cities, and even language. For most of human history, being cared about was not just an emotional luxury. It was a matter of survival. Picture yourself tens of thousands of years ago, part of a small hunter-gatherer tribe. Your existence depends on being noticed, included, and valued. If the group forgets you, ignores you, or decides you're expendable, your odds of survival plummet. Alone in the wild, every night's darkness hums with predators, starvation, and cold. Caring was not an abstract feeling, it was your lifeline. Our brains evolved in this crucible. The need to be seen, to matter to others, became embedded as deeply as the need for food and shelter. Even now, in a world where death rarely waits in the shadows beyond the campfire, our nervous system still reacts to social neglect as if it were a mortal threat. That's why a stranger's disapproval can sting more than reason would suggest, and why being ignored can feel like suffocating. But here's the cruel twist. In modern life, this ancient wiring often works against us. We overestimate the degree to which others care, because our minds are still tuned to an environment where being overlooked meant the end. We carry the same primal alarm system into a reality where most people are too distracted by their own survival to watch ours. This is why we perform, why we craft social media posts like miniature press releases, why we replay conversations in our heads, dissecting every word for how we might have been perceived, why we feel the strange panic of invisibility when a text goes unanswered. The seduction is powerful. Being seen, even superficially, gives a hit of security, however false. Friedrich Nietzsche, who understood the deep pull of human vanity, once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. We like to think we are free, but our need to be cared about keeps us tethered to an invisible collective, bending our choices to its imagined gaze." It's important to understand, this is not just vanity, and it's not a weakness. It's a biological inheritance. Our ancestors who craved the care of others survived longer, reproduced more, and passed down the instincts that make rejection feel like dying. But just because an instinct is ancient does not mean it is useful in every era. What kept us alive in the savannah can kill our autonomy in the metropolis. The challenge is to see through the illusion, without denying the emotional pull it still exerts. When you realize that most people are not invested in your narrative, it creates a tension inside you. Part of you feels betrayed. How can they not care when you care so much about how they see you? Another part feels relief. The exhausting work of maintaining an image suddenly seems optional. This is the psychological crossroads. If you turn one way, you double down on seeking care, bending yourself into shapes to keep the attention of those around you. If you turn the other, you begin the slow, sometimes lonely work of breaking free from the addiction to being noticed. And make no mistake, it is an addiction. Attention releases dopamine. Recognition feels like oxygen. We mistake these chemical rewards for meaning, but they are fleeting, leaving us hollow and more desperate each time they fade. The real transformation begins when you stop treating others' care as the foundation of your self-worth and start treating it as a bonus, a pleasant accident, not a necessity. In the next section, we will confront the unsettling consequences of this shift, the void that opens when external care no longer drives you, and the daunting responsibility of becoming the sole architect of your identity. This is where Sartre's radical freedom starts to feel both intoxicating and terrifying. The moment you stop depending on others to care about you, the world feels unnervingly quiet. No applause, no watchful eyes, no background hum of approval or disapproval. At first, this silence is disorienting, like stepping onto a stage and finding the theater empty. This is the void that Sartre spoke of, the unlit space where there are no ready-made scripts for how to live. The old compass, other people's attention, no longer points anywhere. You realize there is no inherited map for your existence, only the blank page of the present moment. For many, this is where fear creeps in. It's one thing to fantasize about freedom. It's another to stand alone in the open field of possibility. Without the structure of others' expectations, you face the most unsettling truth of all. Nothing compels you to be anyone in particular. You could vanish into obscurity, and the universe would not flinch. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." It's a haunting observation. Yes, you are free to act, but the origin of your desires is mysterious, tangled in biology, memory, and chance. Without external care to guide you, you must begin the difficult work of deciding which of your desires are truly yours, and which are merely echoes of the tribe you've left behind. Here's the paradox. The void that terrifies you is the same space where selfhood is forged. Most people never enter it willingly. They fill it with noise, relationships that act as mirrors, constant social engagement, endless entertainment, anything to avoid sitting alone with the raw material of who they are. But if you can resist the urge to flee, the void becomes a workshop. You begin to experiment with choices not because they will be approved, but because they feel aligned with something deep and wordless inside you. You stop asking, will they like this version of me? And start asking, can I live with this version of me? This shift is not glamorous. It often feels like loss before it feels like liberation. You might drift away from certain friendships or social circles. You might lose the ready-made identity you once wore comfortably. You might discover that much of what you thought was you was actually the reflection of other people's preferences. This is the death phase of self-reliance, the shedding of borrowed skin. And like any death, it's accompanied by grief. Grief for the ease of being cared about without earning it. Grief for the illusion that you were at the center of anyone's world but your own. But within that grief lies the seed of an entirely different kind of life, one where your identity is not outsourced. When no one cares, your value is no longer contingent. You stop trading pieces of yourself for validation, and instead, you begin to build from the inside out. Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the concentration camps and still found meaning in life, wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Once you abandon the hope that meaning will come from being cared about, you face the deeper task of creating that meaning yourself." This is what Sartre called radical freedom. Not the shallow freedom of doing whatever you please, but the heavier, lonelier freedom of shaping your life without any guarantees. And here's the hidden beauty. The moment you take full responsibility for your existence, you stop being a passive character in the story of others. You become the architect of your own narrative, the builder of a structure no one else can dismantle. In the next section, we will explore how to navigate this new freedom without collapsing under its weight. How to build meaning from the ground up when the safety net of being cared about is gone. Because freedom without structure can be as destructive as dependency, and the art lies in balancing both. Once the scaffolding of others' care is gone, you stand in an empty lot where your life structure used to be. The temptation is to rush and rebuild, to fill the silence with new relationships, new achievements, new distractions that can mimic the sense of being watched and valued. But this is a trap, a way of recreating the same dependency you've just escaped. To live without the expectation of care is not to isolate yourself from humanity. It is to construct a life where the pillars are internal, not borrowed. This requires patience, because what you're building now must be rooted deep enough to withstand neglect, criticism, and indifference from the outside world. The first step is self-definition. Not the kind you post in a biography or a resume, but the kind you carry in your bones. Ask yourself, if no one ever saw or applauded this, would I still do it? This question is a brutal filter. It strips away pursuits that are driven purely by the hope of being noticed. What's left are the pursuits that are intrinsically yours, the ones that keep their fire even when there's no audience to warm their hands. From here, you begin to define your own measures of success. Most people inherit these measures without questioning them. Wealth, status, desirability, influence. But when you are no longer performing for care, you can choose values that are immune to the fluctuations of public attention. Depth over popularity, mastery over recognition, truth over comfort. This is where the work becomes philosophical. Aldous Huxley once said, "Experience is not what happens to a man. It is what a man does with what happens to him." Meaning, in this context, is not something you stumble upon. It is something you do with your existence. If the world doesn't care about you, the events of your life are neutral, empty of inherent interpretation. You are the one who assigns them significance. The danger of this freedom is that it can slide into nihilism. Without an external audience, without some larger entity to care, you might ask, why do anything at all? This is the existential cliff edge where many lose their footing. But there's another way to see it. When nothing is given meaning automatically, every act becomes a conscious choice to create it. A meal you cook, a conversation you have, a skill you hone. These are no longer performances. They are brushstrokes in a painting that exists only for you. To thrive here, you must cultivate two abilities: Inner sovereignty and deliberate focus. Inner sovereignty is the refusal to hand over the power to define your worth. Deliberate focus is the art of pouring your attention into what you've chosen, not what the world pushes in front of you. This does not mean becoming emotionally cold or detached from others. Paradoxically, when you no longer need others to care, you can engage with them more authentically. Relationships stop being transactions for validation and start being exchanges of presence. You can give without the silent ledger of reciprocity, because your worth no longer depends on whether it's returned. The greatest danger is speed. If you try to build your inner framework overnight, you'll likely construct something brittle, a set of slogans or hollow affirmations that crumble under real pressure. True inner meaning is forged slowly, through repeated acts of self-alignment, until the person you are in private is indistinguishable from the person you present to the world. Over time, this framework becomes a kind of unshakable shelter. People may drift in and out of your life. Their attention may come and go. But the structure stands because it was never dependent on them to begin with. In the next section, we'll explore how living without the expectation of care transforms your relationship with others, not into cold detachment, but into a deeper, more fearless intimacy that comes from needing nothing and, therefore, giving freely. When you no longer expect others to care in a way that sustains you, something strange happens. Your relationships become lighter, yet more profound. The hidden contracts dissolve, the ones where you silently demand that others validate you, protect you from loneliness, or rescue you from self-doubt. You stop entering connections as a merchant seeking trade, and begin to enter as a traveler sharing a fire. There is no ledger, no anxious calculation of what you've given versus what you've received. Attention becomes a gift, not a debt. This shift rewires the very nature of intimacy. Most relationships are quietly burdened by the need for reassurance. Do you still care about me? Am I still important to you? Do I still exist in your eyes? These unspoken questions hover over conversations, even in love, creating an undercurrent of tension. When you no longer build your worth on the answers, those questions vanish. You can be fully present because you are not secretly auditioning for a role in someone else's life. You're not worried about being replaced, ignored, or abandoned, not because those things can't happen, but because they no longer define you. This is not indifference. It is liberation. It allows you to see people as they are, not as custodians of your self-esteem. You begin to notice the intricate details, the way someone's voice softens when they speak about a childhood memory, the way their hands move when they're thinking. You listen without mentally drafting your reply. You stop bending yourself to be liked, and in doing so, you give others permission to stop performing too. Carl Jung captured this truth with precision. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When you don't need the reaction to affirm your worth, you can focus entirely on the transformation. Interestingly, this detachment from needing care often makes you more magnetic. People feel the absence of neediness like a fresh wind. They're drawn to those who don't demand their attention, because such freedom hints at self-possession, a rare quality in a world of constant validation seeking. But there's a warning here. The same freedom that deepens intimacy can also make you more willing to walk away. When you stop depending on others for existential anchoring, you realize you can survive and even thrive without them. This can be unsettling for people accustomed to relationships built on mutual dependency. They may interpret your independence as coldness or arrogance. That's why it's important to pair this freedom with empathy. You know now that people's need for care is deeply human, a product of evolutionary wiring. You can respect that without becoming bound by it. You can offer care without promising salvation. The irony is that by giving up the hope that anyone will truly be there, in the way you once imagined, you actually become better at being there for others. You do it without the heavy expectation of return, without the transactional undercurrent. This creates a purer form of connection, one based not on survival, but on shared presence. And when someone leaves, it still hurts. You're not immune to loss, but the hurt doesn't hollow you out, because you no longer rely on their care as the scaffolding for your identity. They were a chapter, not the whole book. This fearless intimacy does something else too. It frees you to speak the truth. You can say what you mean, even if it risks disapproval, because your self-worth isn't hanging in the balance. This honesty is rare, and in a world of constant performance, it is intoxicating. In the final section, we'll confront the ultimate outcome of this journey, the life you can build when you are no longer afraid of being unseen, and how this acceptance can turn existential solitude into a source of unshakable strength. There comes a day, after you've walked far enough down this road, when you wake up and realize you are no longer haunted by the question of who cares about you. The absence of that question doesn't feel like emptiness anymore. It feels like space. Space to move. Space to live. Space to create without permission. What once felt like abandonment has become autonomy. You have stopped auditioning for a place in the minds of others, and instead, you have taken up full residence in your own. The strange, cold wind of freedom that first cut you now fills your lungs with clarity. You begin to see how much of the world is shaped by the fear of being unseen. Entire industries thrive on it. Social media algorithms, consumer marketing, even politics. People are herded into choices not by their desires, but by the promise of attention. But you have stepped out of that current. You are no longer spending your life buying tickets to an audience that was never watching in the first place. Jean-Paul Sartre's words ring differently now. Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. The truth that no one deeply cares about you is not a curse. It's simply what's been done to you by evolution, by society, by the nature of human consciousness. What you do with it is up to you. In this space, ambition changes. You may still pursue excellence, but you do it for its own sake, not for applause. You may still share your work, but you release it like a message in a bottle, without expectation of who will read it or what they will think. You may still build relationships, but you no longer build yourself out of them. Paradoxically, this makes you more fearless in chasing what matters to you. The stakes have shifted. If no one is watching, there is no public failure to fear, only the private question of whether you are true to yourself. Success becomes an internal measure, failure a private teacher. This strength is not loud. It doesn't need to broadcast itself. In fact, part of your growth is realizing that your life doesn't need to be a spectacle to be meaningful. The unseen life can be the most abundant one. A quiet garden cultivated out of sight, but overflowing with color and fruit. Of course, there will still be moments when you wish someone cared more. That's part of being human. The difference is that now, those moments pass like weather. They no longer define your climate. You've built a home in the solitude that once scared you, and now it shelters you from the storms of neglect. And here's the final paradox. When you no longer need anyone to care, you are freer to let them in. You can welcome love without clinging to it, praise without depending on it, companionship without fearing its loss. You can give care without the desperation of needing it returned. This is not detachment, it is mastery. You've taken back the power you once outsourced to the fragile attention of others and anchored it in yourself. That anchor is heavy, but it holds. The world will continue not to care, in its broad, indifferent way. But in the space where you thought their care should be, you've built something better, an unshakable sense of who you are and why you move through the world. And from that foundation, you can live fully, create boldly, and love without fear. You've learned the truth most avoid. No one is watching, and that is exactly why you are free.